Assalamu alaikum. My name is Fadwa Wazwaz, and I'm doing a presentation today on question or maybe a statement that is being used in the media to brainwash and the public and to gain, if you will, a type of acceptance or normalization of the genocide that is taking place. And this is the statement that you probably have seen, not just that Israel has a right to defend itself, that's been going on for decades, but I'll discuss that at a different time. But this one is about politicians coming up and saying that what is taking place right now in Gaza, well, Israelis are saying, politicians are saying, but here we're focusing on people in power. Politicians are saying that the children of Gaza have brought this upon themselves. I want to start off with, again, the brainwashing that began to nurture society to accept the genocide that has now become normalized. We went from, for example, saying, was this hospital attacked by Israelis to Israel, to now we've accepted that this is war and this is what happens in war. So if you see a child being killed, they'll say this is war. This is regarding Hind and Nayan. If you see this child being, in shredded pieces hanging from an apartment building, they'll say this is just what happens in war. So we went from the brainwashing statements, claims used to brainwash the public to get to the point of normalization. And that statement has been that Palestinians brought this upon themselves. The genocide, the tens of thousands of civilians killed, the targeting of hospitals, targeting of universities, targeting of bakeries, the targetings of all civilian infrastructure, targeting of professionals, doctors, nurses, from medical personnel to journalists, as we have seen over 100 and some journalists, and people stopped counting after a certain time. But the nonstop, professors, historians, books, all civilian infrastructure and everything, as a response to everything, Israeli politicians will say, they brought this upon themselves. They brought this upon themselves. So I gave here one example, but there's quite a few. I didn't want to spend time collecting all of them, but there were quite a few men and women, by the way, politicians in power arguing, and brainwashing is the word I like to use, to try to get society to become accepting and comfortable and not feel any sense of hey, there's something wrong happening here. I should say stop or ceasefire. So they're running around trying to garner and nurture society so that they can feel comfortable with the genocide that is unfolding. This argument, we could take it, but I like to look at it from a different way. And this is a challenge to Israelis, that maybe their soul is trying to say something to them that they're not ready to receive, what their soul is trying to say to them. And here I want to quote Khalil Gibran. He's a poet. I sometimes like poetry as a way to get people to feel a little bit at ease, because sometimes people have a hard time with scripture. No man can reveal to you aught but that which already lies half asleep in the dawning of your knowledge. The teacher who walks in the shadow of the temple among his followers gives not of his wisdom, but rather of his faith and his lovingness. If he's indeed wise, he does not bid you enter the house of his wisdom, but rather leads you to the threshold of your own mind. So what was in the threshold of Israeli society? Children of Gaza have brought this upon themselves. That is the aha moment that they have come to. However, with oppressors, you have to understand, you have to flip the switch. This is when asleep, to wake them up, all you got to do is flip the switch and then put it back where it belongs. And this is where it says, Israelis have brought October 7th upon themselves. So this is the aha moment that's at the threshold of their mind. But they are denying what they are doing, first of all, and they are projecting what their soul is telling them, which is that if you keep oppressing and persecuting, there's going to be consequences. Instead, you can always tell when you blame somebody who's unprotected or weak here, in their own words, I'm not using these words, children of Gaza brought this upon themselves. All you have to do is turn it around. So what their soul is trying to tell them is, you have brought October 7th upon yourselves. There's other articles here, but I don't want to make this a long video, but I'd like to bring this, you might say, claim that they are making with is kind of in their mind, that they are denying and projecting, then using it now to brainwash and normalize the genocide. Let me just take you to the article I wrote this morning. How can we prevent October 7th from happening again? Because that's the question that they are using to say, the genocide is taking place because we have to prevent October 7th. The genocide is taking place because we have to prevent October 7th. That's the claim they're making. And so let's take that claim and then let's walk with, again, initially what their soul told them, and then walk with that question. And it's imperative to assert boldly and very firmly and reiterate that the events of October 7th were a direct outcome of the transgressions taken by Israel. It's important to underscore this fact to gain a clear understanding of the situation and prevent similar incidents from reoccurring in the future. According to them, they want to prevent October 7th from happening again. We can agree that we want October 7th to not happen again. We don't agree on how you can prevent October 7th from happening again. Their solution is the way to prevent October 7th from happening again is through a genocide and a complete annihilation of the Palestinians in Gaza. We believe that's wrong. And there are other solutions. One, if we look at it, in Yugoslavia, when there was Islamophobia taking place and unfolding, Bosnia and Herzegovina was created out of Yugoslavia. And there was like now Serbia, and there's Bosnia, and there's Croatia. But it was divided because they could not coexist with each other. So one of the solutions, because they claim, is that they came here and Israel had to be created because of the anti-Semitism in Europe. So one of the solutions could be is to create Israel in Europe. Or as they say, go where the love is. You can create Israel in the United States. The United States is very, very big. It has lots of territory. It has a lot of territory. And, you know, since there's a lot of Christian Zionists in the US, and they say like they're invested in the state of Israel, well, then that's great. You could build and create state of Israel, make it the 51st state right here in the United States. You have common values and Western values, and you should be able to get along just fine. No one needs to be wiped out or annihilated. However, individuals should not be oppressed, persecuted, nor should they be forced to endure persecution and genocide to prevent another October 7th. Instead, if Israelis really love the Middle East, they want to live in the Middle East, they have to dump the supremacy mindset that they brought with them from Europe to the Middle East. They cannot come in with that supremacy European mindset that harmed them, first of all, in Europe, and bring it here and then transfer it to the Middle Easterns in the Middle East. If they insist that they really want to live there, they have to learn to coexist, and they have to address the underlying causes of the violence to avoid October 7th from occurring again. Now, how do we do that? One of the chapters in my book, Love is Deeper Than Words, I emphasize the significance of recognizing boundaries to identify transgressors based on law and reason. It stresses the importance of not being influenced, again, by denying, projecting, brainwashing, and normalization of wrongdoing. I have used, of course, the Quran, like I said, extensively to argue my points. Many are not Muslim, so I don't want to take us to that chapter. I'll be addressing that in the next month. So I will share shortly some points, talking points by Dr. Norman Finkelstein. He looks at it from history, political analysis, international laws. But again, his arguments, I tend to sum him up, also talking about boundaries and transgressors. The point that I would like to end this before I show you that small clip from his video is the importance of repeating the boundaries to identify the transgressors. Because is Israel defending itself? Or is Israel defending its oppression, its persecution, its ongoing ethnic cleansing, this ongoing Nakba, the land theft, apartheid, occupation, the siege, the blockade, and now the genocide? Is Israel brainwashing people to accept its transgressions? We can only answer these questions if we understand where the boundaries between Palestinians and Israelis are and who violated these boundaries. Is Israel normalizing its transgressions? These are the questions that need to be explored to nurture the global community to push back at the brainwashing and the normalization and push Israel to its boundaries or offer it a solution or a state in Europe or the United States. Again, nobody needs to wipe out all Jews from the Middle East. They can, I believe I put it in my, let me bring you to it. I could just, so you can, if you just wait a little bit and just watch because they want a state of their own, similar to Bosnia. Not like saying Muslims have one solution, but here, you can create Israel. The situation happened in Europe. So just like we created Bosnia in Europe, not in Saudi Arabia or in Palestine, you can create Israel in Europe where the problem happened. Then you could say, if you can't live with us in peace, then we need a state of our own. And to separate Germany, since it's Nazi Germany that created most of the problem, we're not denying the Holocaust. We're not justifying the Holocaust. We're just saying that we agree with you. If they can't live with you in peace and coexist with you in peace, then you need a state of your own. Yes, you do need a state of your own, but that state should be in Europe. Or if you don't want to go to Europe, then the United States, according to most Congress people, politicians who are fighting and saying, justifying genocide, some of them, there's plenty of land here in the United States. You can go where the love is and just create a nice, beautiful state of Israel right here in the United States. No one needs to be annihilated. But you can't bring that supremacy mindset, which is Nazism, this time manifesting as Zionism, bring it to the Middle East, start to act exactly like Nazis in the Middle East, and while persecuting, oppressing, ethnic cleansing, land theft, apartheid, occupation, and then say you are defending yourself. You are defending your transgressions. You're not defending yourself. So we have to push Israel back within its boundaries. And we cannot allow the brainwashing and normalization of the transgressions that Israel has been engaged in to continue. And we have to help them to hear themselves, because if they want, you can always tell, again, the oppressor is they always project their transgressions onto somebody who is weak and unprotected. As I said, in their own words, they are projecting this on children. I'm not looking at now the Jomo in Israel. I'm looking at people with power, politicians, people with power, people with voice, influence, because that's how normalization works, is you take somebody who has influence, has a platform, has power, and then they start to nurture society that tens of thousands of children that we are seeing killed is okay. And so the normalization of genocide. So what you need to understand when you come to this point and you're saying this is okay, this is what happens to war, what your soul is really trying to get you to understand is October 7th, as hard as it is for you to accept, is a result of the transgressions over the decades by the state of Israel. So we take the projection, we flip it, and we continually repeat it to Israelis. October 7th, if you genuinely and truthfully want to prevent it from happening again, you have to end the violations of international law, and you have to go back within your boundaries. So here is from Dr. Norman Finkelstein. I started at 13 minutes. I would encourage you to listen to the whole video. It's only
was sabotaged by Israel.
Minutes.
Now, the irony is the Kerry proposal gave Israel everything it wanted. The Palestinian Authority effectively agreed to allow Israel to keep what are called the major settlement blocks, effectively agreed to nullify the right of return. Netanyahu still said no. So the only conclusion one can draw from that is the occupation, so far as Israel is concerned, is an annexation. Now, to ask of Hamas or the Palestinians that they don't react at all to the annexation is in effect to say to Palestinians that they have to accept what's illegal under international law, namely the annexation of their country. So the only test for Israel, is it defending itself or is it defending the occupation? There's a simple test. Any 2-year-old can tell you what that test is. Let Israel withdraw to its internationally recognized boundaries. And then, if Hamas launches rockets, they have a right to self-defense, meaning Israel. But until they withdraw to their border, their internationally recognized border, Hamas has the right under international law. There's no question about that. Hamas has the right under international law as a people's struggle for self-determination to use armed force to achieve its independence and statehood. So you can't fault Hamas or the Palestinians for refusing to accept their annexation. In the case of Gaza, it's a double flagrant violation of international law because the blockade is illegal. So what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to allow Israel to suffocate them to death, as Israel has been doing for the last 7 years? Are they obliged legally, morally, to lay down and die? Is that their obligation under international law? You're a mother. I know. 95% of the water in Gaza, 95% of the water in Gaza is not fit for human consumption. Are they supposed to acquiesce in that? Are they supposed to accept it?
Speaking of the international community, why does...
So I'm going to stop it here. I would encourage you to listen to the whole. It's only 46 minutes. Norman Finkelstein on Gaza conflict, Hamas goals, and Iron Dome myth. This is, by the way, an older video. ZEI Squirrel is the channel. I would encourage you to look into it. Again, I believe he did this in 2014. So way before October 7th again. So I would encourage you to listen to the whole thing. And we need to denormalize and push back at the brainwashing so that we can bring an end to the genocide. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.